Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and yeah, it's middle of a pandemic lockdown. It's kind of depressing. I noticed some people starting to crack up online, like comics pros and retailers, and the small amount of advice I have is get outside every day, no matter what. Even as literally just drive to a mailbox and then you don't even mail something. Just get out. It's a lot better if you get out. I think a lot of these people cracking up are just sitting inside all the time. But anyway, related to the pandemic, I'm assuming Hasbro, there's a lot of companies trying to do, hey, we're giving this for free, we're giving this for less, because they know people are just sitting at home all the time because of the pandemic. So the Hasbro YouTube channel released a bunch of G.I.JOE episodes. I know it was definitely all of the first miniseries. I don't think it was the second one, and then it's like, it looked to me like random episodes from later series and things like that. But so I just rewatched G.I.JOE the M.A.S.S device, which was the first miniseries back from 1983, and man alive, I will tell you, that thing held up amazingly well. In addition, I noticed things about it that I never noticed before. First of all, it is borderline a musical. Now, everyone remembers the theme song from the G.I. Joe animated series in the 1980s. Theme songs were pretty common back in the day. I mean, they'd have them for, sitcoms and even some cowboy shows and stuff like that. But the thing I noticed about it was how musical it is. It's not just that it had a great theme song. Like, just for a shot of a bunch of helicopters, going over a forest, they will have this real cool, funky bass guitar, beat. The other thing I noticed is I can't remember a cartoon ever that has got as much mileage out of basically about a half a dozen special effects. In fact, when an action would start, I would just guess it's like, this is going to be one of the two crumpling onto the ground sound effects. Every punch is essentially the same punch, but there's kind of this it's very pleasing to the ear to listen to while you're watching the show. So the M.A.S.S device is and to my great happiness, I googled it. It's like, have they ever made a toy of the M.A.S.S device? And I guess they did. I think it was one of those sets where you had to buy 8 different things and then you would assemble it. The only downside was that it was not to scale. So I was watching some YouTube video and a guy goes, it looks great, it looks just like the cartoon. Then he puts an action figure next to it. It's not to scale. And then he takes out a small one and he goes, but it is to scale to the mini figurines from 1980. I can't, my heart grew wings when he put the correct size. I mean, they're like those die-cast metal figures that don't move, but oh, it was so great. So the M.A.S.S device is about Cobra. Okay, so actually I should do a little background. G.I. Joe was a toy line from, I think, the late 50s, early 60s through the 70s. It was basically the size of a Barbie doll. And then it faded out in the 70s. And then in, I believe, 1981 or 82, they came out with the modern version of G.I. Joe with, Stalker and Snake Eyes and Scarlet, all of them. And it was 8 figures, but most of them were essentially the same body. There would just be little modifications. Rock and Roll, he had 2 bandoliers, crossed over his chest. By the way, I did that one day in Iraq, and I got yelled at a lot. And then basically, it kind of, what you always see in the especially Vietnam movies, or they got the bandoliers across their chest. It's the worst thing. So when you have linked ammo, you got the ammo, and then you have these little metal links. But the thing is, if it's on your chest and it's rubbing up against everything, the links and the rounds are not completely lined up like they should be, so you get all kinds of jams, and it's awful. It looks really cool, but it's a terrible idea. Oh, I got lit the hell up the one day I decided to do that. But they were very basic, and I think the main thing is that they had good vehicles. Like the first year, the vehicles were really good. The figures were like, eh. And I remember when they first came out, I was like the perfect age. I was like 7 or 8. I was kind of iffy on them, but then they had the G.I. Joe comic. And what was special about that is the G.I. Joe comic had animated commercials. So they would do this cool, 25 seconds of animation, and then the last little shot in the animation would go into the cover of that month's G.I. Joe. Now, obviously, they had to do a lot of planning ahead of time, but, for being that age group, that was the most amazing thing in the world. Of course, those were the Larry Hama G.I. Joe comics, which were amazing, and so it was just this perfect storm. So the commercials were so popular that they did a miniseries, and the miniseries, like I said, it holds up really well. One of the things that I didn't realize when I was watching it, but maybe my brain did, so much stuff happens. So much stuff happens. You have never seen so many things happen in 5 half-hour episodes of a cartoon. It is absolutely shocking. In fact, like, you can't look away. You can't look, I got an alert on my phone. No, you better stop that thing. There were several times I had to, I was just watching it, just staring right at my laptop. And still, there were a couple times where I had to stop, because I was like, I just spaced out for 2 seconds, and now the bad guys are flying away, and they're really happy, but I'm not sure why. Oh, because they got the canister, or they left the canister, but it was a fake canister. So the M.A.S.S device is about Cobra and G.I. Joe, which already exist. I love this. I absolutely love it. I love that G.I. Joe and Cobra already exist, although you do kind of get the feeling that both of the organizations are fairly new, like they've only been around for a couple years. And Cobra has constructed a device that lets them teleport anything anywhere and also fire generic destructive beams. And so, but it uses this is so great, oh my gosh, 3 catalytic elements. And there's an entire generation that knows what heavy water is because of a G.I. Joe. So there's a meteorite. There is a something in a cave up in the Arctic, some sort of ore. I guess they're both. I guess it's 2 types of ore essentially. And then there's heavy water, and then that's used to power it. So what happens is freaking everything. Everything happens. There's escapes. There's double crosses. There's oh god. One of the things I love about this is it's very clearly not the G.I. Joe of the G.I. Joe comic book series. It's sillier, it's more fantastical. It's where, Destro and Cobra Commander will verbally joust with each other while using Atari 2600 controllers on a person. I always wonder, a person does a lot of things, but they just have an Atari 26. It's just a joystick and 1 button, and you can do some very complex, So to recount the plot would sound like an 8-year-old making up the plot. What happens? A million things happen. What happens? G.I. Joe and Cobra are fighting. They are racing all over the globe to get the elements. They are stealing them. It's just fantastic. One of the most interesting things about this is that it seems to have been written and designed and animated in this kind of weird area between the first year of the G.I. Joe toys and the second. So they have second-year characters they have Timber the Wolf, and they have Duke, and they have Gung Ho, and they have Torpedo. But they don't have very many of them. And then all of the vehicles are from the first year. They have Cobra aircraft, but they're not the Rattlers. They're just generic Cobra aircraft. So I even noticed in some of the scenes where they need a lot of Joes, one of them was just a guy in a t-shirt and jeans, essentially. I get the feeling they had just started designing this, and they're we got to get into production right now. We got this Marine guy, we got a Navy CEO, we got this, top kick as they call him, Duke. Speaking of Duke, oh my gosh. So Duke is a character in the G.I. Joe comic, which I mainly know. In the cartoon, he is the Chad of all Chads, beyond a super Chad, Omega Chad. And they basically base this entire fantastical around a honestly fairly generic, cool hero guy type, but it totally works. They get awesome voice casting for everyone. Oh, even Baroness. Baroness has like that kind of plain look that she had like in G.I.JOE #1. She didn't even have the black leather with the cobra symbol on her chest. No, she's just there. Snake Eyes has no gloves, which I love. And also, he gets radioactive at one point, and actually a really, cool emotional scene. I mean, they pack everything. It's not just plot; it's emotions, it's humor. It's kind of like, okay humor. But I mean, this was made for 8-year-old kids, so Actually, I remember even being 8 and being like, some of this humor is kind of babyish. But I mean, it's got everything. It's got lava. It's got quicksand. It's got swinging on ropes. It's got and you could tell they kind of set it for, this is for boys, but they knew it was like boys who like girls, but they weren't. So there's girls that are supposed to be love interest-y sort of, but they won't be, but they kind of are. Scarlet is freaking awesome. This is whenever SJW is like, you got to create one. Look at Scarlet. Scarlet is freaking badass. At one point, she just goes to chase Destro by herself. Now she does get captured, but then when he's like, "I will take you in," she fires a crossbow at the freaking controls and basically forces him to crash. Now you might be, that's kind of stupid. But she's basically like, "I'm going to take you down." But then she actually regains control because she has to walk Destro through how to get, and it's freaking awesome. Everything's awesome. Honestly, there was not one part of this miniseries that fell flat or wasn't that good. It is a freaking legitimate classic, and you can watch the entire thing for free on YouTube. Just go to the Hasbro YouTube channel. They don't upload a million things, so you just sort by date, and it's like you just go back and you'll see them. They did upload them a little out of order, so you got to find the Mass Device ones and then do watch later on all those in order. But yeah, so I'm actually gonna, I think there's like 5 or 6 more. I really want to I remember the one with the Serpentor, but then I was reading the description. They're like, the second one was about the Weather Dominator machine, and I go, I don't really remember that. I thought I remembered the second miniseries being about Serpentor, but that might have been the actual series when they did that. So I gotta go track that down. I Mandela affected myself into 100% believing that I had played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and they just released the remaster, and then I was looking at it, I was like, I don't remember any of this. I remember the cover very well, but yeah, I didn't play it at all. I played Modern Warfare a freaking million trillion times, and then they're like, yeah, they did a remaster for that like 4 years ago. I was like, gotta make sure and get that. But anyway, highly recommended for all age groups. It doesn't matter if you weren't a kid in the 80s, you don't have any nostalgia. I think this will absolutely work. It is just terrific fun. So go check it out. And thanks for watching. And I think I'm gonna see if I can finish Aliens tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.